Hey, so I want to say good morning. All right, so we're having this rental facilities information session here. Like I said before, we're having two. We're having one here today at this time. We appreciate everyone attending here right now. We're recording it for YouTube purposes so that anyone that's unable to attend can watch it as well. And then we're having another one on May 23rd at 6 o'clock in the evening so that people can come who couldn't maybe come during the day. The library's already open at 6 in the evening, so we don't have to worry about standing around outside there. I got confused when we first started this up. I thought it opened at 9, so that was my fault on who had to wait around. So I apologize for everyone that had to stand outside. That's why we're kind of waiting a little bit before we got started this morning since they opened at 10. Wanted to make sure, though, before we kind of got rolling on stuff, to make sure you did fill out one of the giveaway cards. We are having giving away a couple things. It's kind of a surprise there. So we do have 3 Yeti things that we're giving away for those who can attend. So make sure you do that. I forgot to graph the clicker thing. All right, so just a couple things so you kind of know about what the format of today is. That we have our room availability till approximately noon. I don't think the library is going to kick us right out at noon, but we should start honoring that time period. The information we're going to cover is going to be about 40 minutes long because our goal today is to answer questions. We want to be able to answer the questions that you may have about these changes or just the program in general. We're going to talk about some of our online features as well, just so that you can get a feel for what things you could do online that you don't have to feel like you have to call the office or come into the office to do things. Then we'll do some question and answers as well. We'll kind of open it up to the group for about 15 minutes or so you can answer those questions or ask those questions and we can give you answers. And then the main goal is, like I said, to answer questions. A lot of times you have maybe individualized questions specific to your properties. Certainly we have tables set up in the back. There will be inspectors and staff from our department that will be able to answer those questions. It might be something more specific to a particular property rather than the program in general. And that's where we're kind of allotting an hour to. So we can get through the presentation at a decent rate of speed here because we want to answer questions as best as possible. Try to hold your questions until the question and answer time period. There were question cards at the table when you signed in or filled out the card for the giveaway that you could certainly write down your question at that time so that you would be able to remember that question because we want to make sure we answer them. Also with those question cards, if you're unable to stay, you're only able to stay here for a certain period of time. There's a box in the back with Donnie that you can collect. That we'll be collecting the information or the question cards so that we can answer those at a later time just in case you don't have enough time to stick around today. So because we want to answer everyone's questions, we want to make sure everyone's well informed of what's going on. So now I'm going to turn this over to Emily, who's going to go over some of the administration part here of the license program.
Good morning. My name is Emily McFarland, and I'm the Neighborhood Services Coordinator. So I manage the rental licensing program, the vacant structure program, and the administrative side of the abatements and citation process. So some of you may have talked to me on the phone before. All right.
Can you speak into the microphone so we can hear you?
Oh, you can't hear me?
No.
Okay. The microphone doesn't.
I'm sitting right in front of you.
Okay. I will speak louder. I have 3 kids I yell at often, so I will try to speak a little louder. The microphone is for the camera, so it doesn't project into the room. The effective date, the introduction for the changes was on August 28th of 2018. The passage date by Mayor and Council was September 25th of 2018. And the effective date will be July 1st of 2019. The effective date of July 1 was to be able to educate property owners of the changes and to establish the list of the units never inspected. The longer effective date allows staff time to properly research each unit and its inspection status. Okay. In the amended ordinance, we added a definition to dormitories. A structure specifically designed and used for long-term stay by students of a college, university, or other academic or trade school. And the fee structure for this kind of building would be $100 for each rooming house or dormitory facility plus $10 per room. We also added a PEP standard renovation exemption. And this says the license, registration fees, and inspection requirements shall not be applicable to a newly constructed rental facility and/or existing rental facility under permit to the Partners of Economic Progress for the 4-year period immediately following the issuance of the use and occupancy permit. So we would allow 48 additional months until the unit would have to be inspected or registered. Transferring a rental license. Language has been added to address notification when ownership changes. So within 0 to 30 days of new ownership, there is no transfer fee. If you notify us 31 to 60 days after ownership is changed, there will be a $25 transfer fee per license. Anything over 61 days, you must apply for a new license and new fees will apply. And we will use SDAT to confirm ownership. Who's responsible to let us know when ownership changes? The new owner is responsible. If there's a property management company involved, they can notify us, but it is ultimately the owner's responsibility. And why did we create this fee? For the inducement of the owner to notify the city of the change in ownership and to avoid the fee. And also, and most importantly, so staff has up-to-date information for the purpose of emergency situations, sending correspondence, inspection results, and sending rental license renewal notices. Who should you contact if there is a change to your rental license or any questions about your rental license? You can send an email to me, that's E. McFarland, the top one, an email to codecompliance@hagerstownmd.org. I check that on a daily basis. You can call our office, and my direct extension is the 805 number. Or you can use our online form that we have put on our website to report change in ownership. So we have a new deadline to pay rental licenses. The first notice is mailed May 1st. The second notice is mailed June 1st. And the renewal deadline for rental licenses is June 30th in order not to incur any late fees. The third notice is mailed July 1 with a $50 late fee. The fourth and final notice is mailed August 1st with a $100 late fee. Notices of violation for failure to register are issued September 1st, and citations issued and/or rental fees liened after failure to pay within 90 days. To be clear, the ordinance says that we have 60 days, and then we can lien the rental license fee now. But we're giving up to 120 days from the date of the first notice to the notice of violation.
All right, so it's back to me. All righty, so now we'll go over some of the inspection stuff here, and that's where a lot of questions sometimes can lie. So we did make some changes to the inspection process, but some things remained unchanged, and I want to kind of make sure that you're aware of what remained unchanged. So the annual exterior inspection is still the way it's always been. We're doing an annual exterior inspection. It's unscheduled, that we'll go out and take a look at the property to see if there's any deficiencies related to the code. That doesn't change at all. Those are unscheduled. The staff go out as their schedule allows to do these inspections. Now, if you want to be present during one of those inspections, certainly just contact our office. Say, hey, when you're doing your exterior inspection, can you call me? I want to be there with you when you're doing it so I know what you're talking about. Certainly. It makes things easier for communication purposes if you're there. Also, the rental interior turnover inspections, that's still the same as well. Nothing's changed on that. I gave a couple examples, though, so we can kind of understand that, because we get a lot of questions in our office about, do I need an inspection because this happened? I want to make sure that we understand. So basically, we conduct a rental interior inspection. We did it. It was vacant. We did the interior inspection. Any results from the inspection was shared with you all. You made any corrections if needed. So the tenant moves out after 1 year because they signed that year lease. They moved out. They're no longer in the place. You do not need to call us for an inspection. So if the tenant moves out after that year, you don't need to call us for an inspection. So let's say that we did the inspection and the tenant moves out 3 years and 3 months from the time that we did the inspection. You still do not need to call us for an inspection. So then now the tenant moves out after 4 years from the inspection. That is when you call the city for an inspection to say, it's been 4 years, I need a rental interior inspection. So that's when you call us. So a couple other examples. So it has been 4 years. So now it's been 4 years. And the 4 years have come up, and you're saying, do I need an inspection or not? If it's the same tenant that has been occupying that unit on the 3 years, 11 months, and 29 days, and it's that same tenant that's in there, you do not call us for an inspection after that 4-year anniversary. So let's say you're thinking, okay, well, what if they live there 10 years, like as the next example? So they continue to live at the place, which is great for you, all right? If they're paying their rent, they're living at the place, they're keeping it nice, that's what you want. That's what everyone wants there. So that's great, and you still do not call us for the inspection. It is the first turnover after the 4-year anniversary is when you call us for an inspection. So that's been the same, that's never changed, but I just kind of wanted to go over that, so we made sure we had a couple examples of just what it is when you need to call us. Okay, so the never inspected units, that's where the change occurred for this program, is these units we've never inspected. And we'll go through them a little bit more in detail. All right, so a never inspected unit is essentially a unit that we have that has never been inspected in the rental facilities program. We have approximately 9,800 units in the rental facilities program, and these are ones we've never been in at any point in time since the program started to now. So it could have been one that joined a few years ago, but we still didn't do actual inspection into that unit. And if the unit is occupied, we'll do what's called a safety inspection, which I'll get into a little bit later. And then if it is vacant, then we'll go ahead and do a full rental interior inspection, and then you got that 4-year time period then that starts right at that time. So if it's one of those that we've never been inspected, it's vacant, we do the inspection, it's good for 4 years. If it's a newly added rental unit to the program, we're going to do the inspection within 30 days of the application of it. Again, if it's occupied, we'll do a safety inspection. If it's vacant, we do a full interior. So let's say, all right, I bought this property, I'm going to do a renovation. I want to go ahead and get this place a little bit nicer before I rent it out. We understand that. Let us know about the purchase of the property. Go ahead and get it registered, but you don't have to do the inspection right now until you're done your renovations. And then before you get it occupied, then go ahead and give us a call. We'll do the inspection, and then we can then have that 4-year time period. If you're buying a rental property, or if you're buying a property, it was the owner that was living there, and you're saying, all right, this person's now just going to stay in the property, but I'm going to be the owner of it, and they're going to be the landlord, we would do just what's called like a safety inspection at that point. Now, if it was a rental property before, and it's staying in a rental property, just changing ownership, this part doesn't really apply because these are newly added ones. Even though it might be new to you as an owner, it's not new to the program. It was already established in the program, so therefore it doesn't need this type of inspection if we've already done one before. Now, if you happen to buy one and it was one that we never did the inspection on before, well then that's a different scenario because we had never done that inspection, so we're going to want to make sure we get that inspection done. All right, so what is a safety inspection? Because a lot of times that could be the question, right? Because we have what we call our full interior inspections, and then we have these safety inspections. So basically it's a limited inspection of occupied units that will focus on life safety standards that was adopted by the Mayor and Council by policy as the safety inspection standards. So that's what we're going to use. They're back at the safety inspection table. Some of y'all might have grabbed it beforehand of what the sections are that we'll be referencing. It's a limited scope inspection. Now there is an exemption for this. So let's say you're someone that has been blessed with a tenant that has been there for a long time, which again, like I said before, that's what we all would like to have. So if it's been the same tenant that's been occupying that unit since July 1 of 2003, because that's when the program went into effect, then you're exempt from this inspection. So if you have a long-term tenant into place, we're not going into disrupt any of their environment of them being there a long time, then you have an exemption for that. Now, as far as the safety inspections go, you might be thinking, okay, how do we know to do a safety inspection? We've done a lot of research on this. We've been doing safety inspections for actually a couple years on some situations where they have been units that we never been in before. So we have done these safety inspections, but then also we did research on it as well. Staff, we've went to College Park and Hyattsville, Bowie, and Chambersburg, and did ride-alongs with all of those jurisdictions to see how do they do their inspections while the units are occupied. And then also I did a day spending it with Don Harcum, riding along with the Harestown Housing Authority to see how they do the inspections when those are occupied. So we've done a lot of research on trying to get what would be a safety inspection standard, seeing what other jurisdictions use so that we could be consistent with other jurisdictions to make sure we're all on the same page with stuff. All right, so get a little bit more detailed on what some of those specific items are. For the safety inspections, I have the list here. Again, that's in the back that you can get for a handout. You don't have to try to jot it down or take a picture of them now. But I'm going to go through a couple of them just so you kind of get an understanding of what they are. So we have the smoke and carbon monoxide alarms. I think that's a no-brainer on that type of stuff there. We always want to see that those things are in place. For different placement locations or where smoke detectors need to be placed at, we do have multiple handouts back at that safety inspection table that can help you with what type of alarm is required, where should they be located, and what type of power source that you might need for that. So we do have multiple handouts for that certainly we can always answer those questions. And I will say that we won't be able to give you an exact answer today if you're saying, I got this room and I need to put a smoke detector up. Is it okay if I put it at this location? We're not going to know that. We're not in the room. We can't really answer that question. But we certainly can visit you on site and to give you that answer. Ground fault receptacles and electrical hazards, limited to those sections. Mechanical appliances, clearance and maintenance from those areas. The emergency cutoff switches, the water heaters, emergency escape and means of egress. We've got to make sure people can get out in the event of emergency. We want to make sure they can get out of the place. Also entry door locks. We want to keep everyone safe that's inside their places, so it's just entry door locks. So that means the doors into the units. So that may be the front door, or what we all consider the front door. It might be a rear door that has a fire escape from it. It's not saying locking that door, it's saying you have the ability to lock it from your side, not a padlock on that door. That would just be horrible, and the fire marshal wouldn't be happy about that, would they? So those type of doors, maybe it'd be basement hatchway doors, that type of stuff, making sure that someone's safe inside their unit. Handrails and guardrails, just to make sure that you can get safely traverse those areas. Also infestation, any type of infestation that might be in a place. Also closed dryer exhaust, making sure they're connected right to the outside, not the bucket vents. That is not allowed by code. Also unit habitability. Utilities are properly connected, meaning that you have water and power in these units. You got to have water and power in them. All the required facilities for the bathroom and kitchen are in place. Proper room dimensions. Also, the access to areas is maintained, and then also all areas are properly ventilated. So you might be thinking to yourself, okay, they do an inspection of one of these occupied units. My tenant caused some of these problems. The tenant did it. We understand that, and we know there's going to be situations that can occur, and we want to work together with you all to help address those situations. I mean, who's ultimately responsible? Yes, by the code, it does say the owner, but I could speak for all of our inspection staff that when we come across those situations that we know the tenants are causing, that we're working on with you in conjunction to get those areas cleaned up because of the tenant caused it. So if there's a hoarding situation, or if they're causing these things of ripping down smoke detectors and cluttering around the furnaces and making the damages inside the place, we want to work together on those things because we don't want them to damage. We don't want the code violations to be at those properties and make it unsafe for them. The same thing goes that you all don't want your property being damaged. So we want to work together on that. When we have those situations come up, we'll work together trying to resolve those. As far as hoarding situations, I'm working with a psychiatrist right now to try to help us, to try to get someone available to us. So if we do have something like that, because as we all know through the show of hoarders, that there is a mental condition. It is not something that can just be easily fixed by taking everything out and throwing it away. It is a mental condition. So we're working with a psychiatrist to try to help that where we can get things through a better approach to taking at these types of situations. So I haven't finalized those details yet, so I can just say I'm working with someone, haven't finalized it yet. All right, so the never inspected. We have a prioritization for this. We worked with the mayor and council because we want to make sure we focus on the properties that have been more irresponsible than others, essentially. So we want to make sure that we're focusing our attention on the ones that basically been trying to skirt the rules for the rental facilities ordinance here. So we made a prioritization schedule for that that was adopted by the mayor and council. And it has three categories. We have the percentage of units and the property that had never been inspected. So this is a property by property analysis. This is not I'm a landlord and I have 50 rental units. It's not taking you collectively in all of those 50. It's a property by property analysis of these. So we'll look at the percentage of units that are vacant now, or that have never been inspected. Now, granted, if it's a 1-unit property, it's never been inspected, that's 100%, right? That's a pretty straightforward number, but as far as other ones go, of course, it varies from property to property. The tenancy length, an average over 4 years, essentially how long had a tenant been staying inside of a place. We'll use our light bill accounts for that information. We don't have access to PE for what they have as far as turnover, so basically be limited to that original city square and the city of Hagerstown for where we service light too. And then also exterior property conditions, number of violations over a 4-year average, and that's structure violations. It's not saying that the tenant was supposed to mow, because typically in a lot of these single-family homes, tenants are responsible to mow the lawn or do something along those lines. So we're not counting those types of things. We're counting actual structure violations, not they didn't mow the grass, had junk in the yard, trash violation, untagged vehicles. That type of stuff is not getting calculated in this. It's focusing on structured things that are things that typically an owner does take care of. Like I said, it was adopted by the mayor and council by policy. So here's the point scale essentially. So it ranks everyone out to different areas for this, and you earn essentially a total number of points based upon where you fall into this category. And so essentially then now you get a grand total. So essentially once we get everyone in a certain category where they are to get points earned, you get a grand total. If you're a higher point getter, you have the first priority, and as it goes down, you have lower priorities for that. Preliminarily, we have that there are 2,403 units that we've never inspected in the city of Hagerstown. So that's why that we have this never inspected requirement that we're putting out, because there's so many of these units. And I will tell you, it's not newer units or these big complexes. The big complexes are actually very compliant with our office. There's just a handful that we've never inspected with that. And we've actually, one of those site visits, so when we visited Bowie, Bowie explained to us how they do these large complexes, that they'll do them when they do the 6-month changeovers, when they're changing out the air filters and doing their regular maintenance checks, that they do their inspections with them at that time. We were like, man, that's a great idea, because they're already going into the units. The tenants are already notified of entry into the unit. So we're just tag teaming them at that time. They'll make notice to those tenants that we would be in at that time, but we can get those units taken care of then. But there's very few that have that. It's mostly single-family properties. That's where a lot of these never inspecteds actually come from, are the single-family units. We're saying it's going to take us approximately 2 years to complete these inspections. So we're giving ourselves a 2-year time period. Essentially, the never inspections are created to make an even standard for everyone, essentially. We're not saying that other people are, supposedly getting away with something, that we're making just an even standard for everyone. You have at least the bare minimum inspection that was at your unit, and then hopefully it gets people that maybe never called us before to start calling us for inspection, so that we can get everything rolling into the regular program as designed 16 years ago. So the never inspected units here, how are we going to notify you? Right? So, I can make a list all day long, but if I don't tell anyone about it, it's not going to do anything. So how are we going to notify you as the property owner that there is a never inspected unit at your place? So essentially, the property owners are property managers of, like what we say, the top 100. So essentially, on July 1, we'll take the top 100 and send them letters. On August 1st, that first 100 is off the list, and then we'll take the next top 100 and kind of work our way through the list that way. Then we'll send a letter requesting inspection of a unit starting in July, like I said. The letters will be sent monthly. So the property owner or property manager then has 30 days to schedule the inspection with us. Now there's different ways that you don't have to have this safety type inspection. The one thing that has never changed with us is that the Hagerstown Housing Authority inspections count as our own, and we have Sean, Chris, and Don from the Housing Authority that are here with us today, and appreciate them and our partnership that we have with them to accept their inspections as our own. It's always been reporting those to us, so we get a lot of times, well, I have Section 8 tenants, and they did an inspection. We don't know that. So you have to let us know about those types of stuff. Sean and I have talked, we might be working through some things where we can get notifications to us a little bit better without having the responsibility on an owner. But as it stands right now, owners need to tell us when you have a Section 8 inspection done at your property. But essentially, that you have 30 days, you provide documentation to our office that maybe the city did do the inspection. I am not going to sit up here and say that our filing system is the best in the world and we have never misfiled anything. We have probably misfiled something. I can guarantee it. I've gone in files and I've opened things up and I'm going, why is something on East Washington Street in here for something on Franklin Street? Now, granted, we know people get confused going the wrong way down those streets. I think we've all seen it. But it's just one of those things that sometimes things do get misfiled. We have 40,000 files on our third floor of City Hall, and something may have gotten misfiled. We have moved those files 6 times since the rental licensing program started. When I say moved 6 times, it wasn't just like we took them off the shelf and moved them somewhere else. We had different buildings that we moved to. We packed them all in boxes, stored them at different locations, and then reshelved them as well. So is there the likelihood that the city did an inspection and then it got misfiled along the way? I will say yes, there is. So if you have record of that inspection and say, hey, you all did do this inspection 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it may be, great, then give us a copy of that. We'll put it in our system. We'll review it to make sure that everything is correct and see if we can't find it on our end. And then we'll make a copy and put it in our file and document it so they don't need an inspection. Also, the Hagerstown Housing Authority, we'll accept their inspections as our own. So if it was a recent annual inspection that was done by Don at one of the properties and you were like, hey, Don just did this inspection a month ago, just let us know about that. Give us a copy of the report, let us know, and then we can go ahead and document that. And again, don't need the inspection by our office. Or let's say that you have a tenant that has lived in that property since July 1 of 2003. So certainly, just give us some sort of documentation on that. What is that documentation? I have no clue. This is going to be a case-by-case basis type of situation. We'll work with you on that type of stuff. So I can't have any direct answers for that one like, well, I have this that says that. I don't know. We'll work through them as one by one and as we go through those. But it is something that we have also as an exemption. Once we review that type of stuff, we'll send a letter back because we want to make sure we document everything so there isn't any confusion. Don't want to say that, we gave you a call and told you that you need an inspection and all that type of stuff. So we'll send a letter back saying, hey, we reviewed your documentation you sent to us. Thank you very much for doing that. You don't have to have an inspection by the city. We're taking that as our own for what you provided, or you have an exempt tenant. And then if the documentation we have that isn't something that's showing that it's a rental inspection, then we're going to say, okay, we still need to do the inspection, so we'll send you a letter letting you know on that one. The 30-day time period, again, we'll work with everyone. We want to work with everyone on that type of stuff here. We're not saying you got 30 days to do all this stuff and you're done. We want the communication in those 30 days, but if there's something to schedule, we're not saying that finally if we get a review at 29 days that we're saying we got to do the inspection tomorrow. We'll work with everyone on the time frame. The inspectors got to fit into their schedules as well too. So I could talk all along about how easy it is for us to do administratively. They're the ones that have to go out and do the inspection and fit in their schedules. If you don't schedule an inspection, so you might be thinking, okay, well these people that haven't been doing this, which is why we passed this whole entire change, is still going to get away with it. We're going to end up fining them $500 for failure to schedule the inspection with us and take whatever action we need to get access to those units. I'm hoping it never comes to that point, but that is what we have in place in case that is what happens. So one of the things I want to mention on this page I didn't list up here, but that's why I carried the paper with me, is that how did we get to these never inspected units? Because you might be thinking, okay, I just said that the filing system isn't the best in the city of Hagerstown, so how do we get to this situation? Or how do we get this list? So essentially what I did at first was I went in the computer and I pulled everything out that we had for inspections in our system. Now, I'll tell you that when we first started, we were carbon copy forms. If anyone's been with us since the original program, we were carbon copy forms. And that went on the shelf that we filed. And that was the way it was for like 3 years. We never put anything in a computer system. It just was a carbon copy form, put it on the shelf, and there we went. And then or it's 2 years, I'm sorry, because at that time we were 3 years. If anyone remembers, it's been a landlord longer. It was 3 years for every inspection. We bumped it up to 4 in 2008. So at 2 year mark, I'm going, all right, what are we going to do? Because we have this whole list. How are we going to know when the next ones are due and all that type of stuff. So we hired a person from Manpower that came in, and he ended up taking everything off the shelf and writing in manually to the computer of what files we had for what the inspection was at that property. Now, granted, I know I do not have the best penmanship in the world, but sometimes, you know, if you wrote R, but you wrote the 1 and the little market for an R, we all knew it was R because we did the inspection stuff, but the person from Manpower took it as 12. Or when we had like the line for the 1 and the B, they took them as 13. So I have some that are like that didn't match up when we went to a computer system that we merged everything into. So I had a couple kickouts for those. So I went through the list, had everything come out, linked it by what we call our parcel ID numbers, printed everything out. I manually went through each of our rental units. We have 9,800 rental units in Hagerstown. I went through each individual one to see where we did inspections at and saw how many units were registered and count them. Let me tell you that some of the ones that have multiple units, that was not fun. Those were not fun times looking through all of those. But after I did that, then we highlighted them and determined that these were places that we never inspected. So if there were 6 rental inspections that were done at this property at any point in time, and then there were 6 units registered at that property, it's not on the list. But if we did, if it's a 6-unit property, we only did 2 inspections at the property, it's on the list for never inspected. So then once we did that, then we had a long list. And then Wendy, that some of you all probably met when you were signing in, she has had the pleasure, and she just finished this the other day, of going file by file in our system to determine which inspections did we do at this unit. So she only pulled the ones off for that property. So she wasn't looking to see if something got misfiled that was on a Washington Street, that's on a Franklin Street property. She didn't look at that. She would pull the file out, look at the property, see what inspections that we did, and got that list done. So then now we have a paper version of what is in our files. And so now we can compare what was in our files to what we had in the computer to then now see where we have to go next is kind of compare those at. I'll be honest that I know that there was a couple that I'm looking at the list. For those of you who remember, I had the downtown area years ago. And I'm looking at some of these on Antietam Street, and I'm going, wait, I know I did that unit years ago. I remember doing that. Wendy found those files. So we are going to have a couple of those that are going to get knocked off the list and stuff there as I compare, as I dwindle it down and we get to a smaller list. So I know that we're working on it. That's our next phase, and that should finalize the list at that point. Again, then we'll work with you all on what are the ones that we never inspected. Now, one thing I want to make sure that you're aware of, as you're trying to think, okay, well, maybe the city did do an inspection of that unit, but a complaint inspection that a tenant called in is not the same as a rental inspection by our office. So a complaint inspection, if a tenant calls us, that is when we are just going in specifically looking at what the tenant is concerned about. Now, at times there might be things that are blatant to us that we see that a tenant might not be concerned about, but is something is a code violation, we'll note. But if it's just a notice and not a rental inspection, that is not the same as a rental inspection, so those won't count. That's why I'm just letting you know that up front. All right, so one of the other changes that we made was the revocation process, because a lot of things that we hear is that, you know, what about these landlords that are the bad landlords, the ones that aren't following the rules? And we wanted to standardize that process. We've always had a revoking of license, and we did that years ago, but it never was that effective because we could revoke the license, but everyone still operated as a rental property. So revoking the license just meant, okay, well, we revoked it, and they didn't have a license, we could fine them, but it didn't change anything and didn't change the conditions of the property. So we wanted to standardize everything. So if the rental license has been revoked or denied, that utilities may be disconnected. Now, that's after a 60-day time period, like you would be notified on that type of stuff, and if the property would be revoked or the license be revoked. If you need the utilities on to make the repairs, obviously that would be not too smart of us to turn off the electricity or turn off the water to make those repairs. What we did was we came up with a point system then to make sure that everyone was on the same playing field and saw what standing everyone was in for a rental property, to just use some certain standards that were set that working with the mayor and council, what we adopted, and this is in the ordinance. This isn't by a policy. This is in the ordinance. So when I mentioned before that things were inside of a policy, Those are things that we can modify a little bit with the mayor and council approval, of course, but it's a little bit a quicker process to get a change in a policy than it is by an ordinance. So if there's the safety inspection standards, if we're looking at things and we're going, man, these things just aren't working out with some of these standards, or the prioritization is not working out on how some of that is going, we can modify that and make a change with the mayor and council very quickly on a policy. An ordinance change, of course, has the introduction and the passage and all that type of stuff. So that's actually in the ordinance, though, that is a point system, and I'm going to go over that next. So we consistently evaluate all the properties, keeping everyone on the same playing field. We're not going to, say that, well, this person's always never mowed their lawn, so they're up on the list. No, it's just putting everyone on the same playing field. And the review will be conducted by the PCAT administration staff. Basically, that would be myself, Emily, and then Wendy as well, that will be reviewing all these types of things. Now, the one thing you're thinking, oh my goodness gracious, they're just going to revoke licenses all the time. They're just going to go out and they just want to revoke licenses. That's not our goal. We do not want to revoke licenses. We don't want to have to vacate buildings in this town. We want to keep everything the same. So when we established this point standard, I went through and looked at the previous 2 years to say, okay, what would other properties fall into if we were going to use this standard? So in last year, in 2018, we would have had 13 properties that would have been warned, saying if you're not making corrections to your property here, we will revoke your license. No licenses would have been revoked last year. And then in 2017, it would have been 11. Now, I don't know if they were the same in the previous years. I didn't look into that. I was just looking where everyone fell out on the point scale. But it would have been 11 properties in 2017 that would have gotten a warning letter, and none would have been revoked as well. So again, it's just keeping everyone on the same standard, and I think that's where we all want to be at. We want to hold everyone to the same standard. You all keep nice properties. You want everyone to be held to the same standard that you're keeping your properties at. It's doing that by having everyone being warned that if you're not at this certain quality standard, you will be potentially revoked. Now you're thinking, okay, well, 1311, that could be high. Well, we have 3,500 properties in Hagerstown that are, or I'm sorry, it's 3,800 that are licensed in the city of Hagerstown. So that's such a small percentage. That's such a small percentage on the number of properties. So, so just to remind you, I said 3,800 properties. We have 9,800 units, 3,800 properties in town. So we have a lot of multi-unit properties in our town. All right, so the point system to evaluate these properties for revoking a license, they're going to focus on a couple areas. So it'll be the violations of the safety items, essentially. The safety items are what we see in the safety inspection standard, that you would have those types of violations at your property. That you had unreported tenant turnovers calculated over a year time period, so that you weren't reporting tenant turnovers to us. Then also the unreported tenant turnovers for required inspection. Wait, why did I have that twice? I'm sorry. Because it's for the multifamily unit. So we have same standard, same point schedule, but it's just for one for multifamily and one for 1 and 3 unit properties. If you had municipal infraction citations, those are fines if those were issued. So when we send you a letter telling you that there's things that are deficient with the property, and terminology terms, that for us is a notice. It's not a citation. A citation is a fine. So that's where the difference is. So sometimes when people call into the office, they'll say, I got a citation for this. And we're like, oh my goodness, we fined for something like that. And then it was actually just a letter that we sent. So they're two different things. The excessive use, if a fee was issued for that, I could tell you that, the Chapter 95 for the crime-free ordinance that we have for the city of Hagerstown, the excessive use stuff, we have only ever fined or feed one rental property in that program. Majority of the ones for our purposes for in the code administration is for these vacant properties, which if you saw the article in the paper today, you kind of know where we stand on some of these vacant properties in town. Also then the property taxes are unpaid for 180 days. This is something that the council are like, we want to see everyone paying their taxes on time. So if people are paying late, then we're holding them accountable to earn some points. And then also the license registration fees go unpaid for more than 120 days, or if they were liened on the property, that would earn some points as well. So those are how people can earn points. Like I said, our main goal is mostly making sure keeping everyone on the same playing field for things. And we're not here to revoke licenses, but we want to hold everyone accountable. And we have some that fall into that category where they do need to be held to a higher standard for being held accountable for stuff. All right, so then now I want to go over a couple of the online features that we had. So those were all the changes essentially that the rental licensing changes that we had in the, that was last year that go into effect in July. So those are the ones that there are. The other ones that you kind of know of or thinking, did they change this or did they change that? We didn't change it if that's what you're thinking. Because if it wasn't listed here, we didn't change those items. So what are some of the online features? You can request inspections online. You don't have to call our office to request that inspection. There's a link on there. And if you go to the HagerstownCode.org, I know we got the HagerstownMD.org, but if you go to Hagerstown Code, that takes you to our code administration page for the city. And then you click on Online Services, which is in a box on the left-hand side, or if you're on your phone, it's the last box at the bottom that you can just click on, and that will give you all of the different online features that we have. So you can request an inspection that way. Sometimes that's much easier just because you can just do it at your leisure, and especially if it's at night or something, and you're thinking, I got to call for that inspection, you can go ahead and submit that online. Also, you can look up the inspection and the permit history as well. That's the same way that you can pay your light bill or water bill online, and I think they can do taxes now too, but I don't know if anyone does it that way. But you can actually do it through all of that online feature. You can look stuff up. Now, I'll admit, you know, it's like the age-old joke type of stuff there when the astronauts go up. You know, it's always, you know, they're going into space and stuff there, but it's on the cheapest low bid type item, right? So, you know, what do we have for our software system? Cheapest low bid type item. So we have the software system that you can look this stuff up online, and it is easy to use if you follow the instructions. If you don't follow the instructions and try your best guess at it, it'll make you frustrated. But you can look up the inspections and see where the permit history is for properties, but it doesn't tell you if we have the case open or closed. So if you're looking to invest in a property and you're like, hey, I wonder what 1 East Franklin is. Of course, that's the address of City Hall. But if you're saying, I want to look up 1 East Franklin Street and see what is the outstanding notices with that property, you might see a whole bunch of things listed, but you don't know what's outstanding or what's open, closed. You have no clue. It just lists a whole bunch of things, but it doesn't tell you what's open or closed. That's the downside to that software system. I've reached out to the software system with our IT department to determine if we can't do that, and that's a modification and expense and all this other stuff. So it's not there yet. Hopefully another jurisdiction will get it, and then we'll get it on the upgrade. That's what I'm hoping for. So also you can submit lead paint information. So of course with any of your licenses, or if your property is from before 1978 that it was built, which there's a few like that in Hagerstown, right? Just a couple before 78. So if you have those, you need to make sure you have the lead paint information. If you forget to submit that to us, you know, you can always use the form online to submit those lead paint information. The change of ownership, like Emily said, you can do that as well through the form. Also report a property concern. So we understand that sometimes you have a rental property and you have a property beside of you that is not kept to a high standard that you keep your property at, and you want to report that to us. Certainly, you can fill out the form there, let us know about that situation, and we'll go out and investigate it. You can actually pay license fees online as well. It's going to be kind of changing a little bit this year. We're going to be going through that same system that you pay your water bill and your electric bill on. So it's going to be going through that. There's some manuals back there. We have the online table back there that you can go and get manuals for how to look up the licenses, the permit history, and actually how to pay fees. And also we have just general department information as well, just on our site. Just always like to put that out there about the permits, the programs, licensing, that type of things. If you have any general questions, we have a lot of information on that website. It's always fun when we get the update and saying, hey, we're changing the website and we got to do a couple things. And then I'm told that we have one of the larger number of pages for different information that we try to provide to people. So you can get lost on all of that stuff, but certainly you can look up all those items. And then also, I want to know what ways we can improve the website. So if you're looking at it and you're going, this thing is horrible to use, is there a way that you all can make this better or something? Certainly let us know. I'll try my best. We'll work with our IT staff and we'll work and come up with better ways, and we might be able to display something ourselves. But certainly let me know. We want to make more features available online so that you all can do things more as your schedule allows, rather than just trying to call the office during the limited hours that we're open. We're all getting to a more online world, right? We always want to do more things online as much as possible. So we want to know what ways we can improve it. I can't change the online system, though, for the paying of the fees and looking up the permit or inspection history and that type of stuff, sorry. But we can do some other things to our website itself to kind of get you some better information. One thing I want to let you know about, even though we're saying coming in the second quarter of 2019, we did make it live this week just because we want you all to follow us. We do have some social media accounts set up that we're going to be doing all sorts of different posts for these types of things. We want to know what, why join, why follow us? Why follow the government and a code office and stuff here? Well, we want to actually, we want to show our appreciation for the different things that are going on in our town. So when great beautification projects are done to a particular property, we can share that with everyone so everyone can see. We're happy to see those things when an improvement is made to a property. We want to also, honor our partnerships and investments that are being made within the city. So we want to be able just to share those things and highlight that on our social media accounts. We're only going to do about one post a week because we don't have someone managing this for our office. So it's a couple of the inspectors that are doing this and one of our planners in our department that we don't have enough time and manpower to have just a whole entire social media account for multiple posts. But we want to do it like on a weekly basis and just let people know about the different things, kind of show before and after projects and that type of stuff. So for those of you that are interested, because everyone's been saying when's Krispy Kreme and all that type of stuff's going to open. We're going to be out there next week and we're going to post some things about Krispy Kreme and kind of give some updates. So when some projects, when are they going to be completed? Kind of let you know that type of stuff you might be interested in, so you can kind of follow us and see what that is, share with your friends and let them know about it as well. If you have different ideas for topics that you might like to see on the social media account, let us know. I mean, it's great for us to be able to share different things and be able to let you be informed of something that we can put together. Sometimes it's easy for us to put something together during a staff meeting or something, to put together a post to educate people about. You can see Donnie back at the online table, that if you have any ideas of what you might think would be good on a social media account, let us know. You can always email us as well if you have any idea. All right, so like I said, I'd be approximately 40 minutes on this one, and I think I'm hitting at that point right now. So now at the question and answer time period of this. Generally we have some general questions for the group setting and specific questions to be back at the tables, and I'll get into those here in a second. But I want to kind of answer a couple frequently asked questions that we get in our office sometimes, and people might not feel that there are certain things that we're doing, and I want to kind of address those up front. So, are we identifying the properties that aren't registered in the program? A lot of times we get that, hey, I know these properties aren't registered. Are you looking into all that type of stuff? There are 14,000 parcels in the city of Hagerstown. It's hard for us to know what's going on in every single parcel at that time, but we do track those. We had a GIS thing done where we could figure out if it was a residential property that had an improvement on it that wasn't licensed in the program. We had a list that was generated. It came up with 924 properties. Emily and Wendy worked through all of those properties, and that was very tedious for them to do. We just finished that up a couple of months ago because we just got that list last year, and we just finished it up. Found out a lot of them, they weren't rental properties, or some of them were, but it was the family members that were living inside the property and they're exempt from them. Emily's still working through processing a majority of those because we sent the applications out, and some we haven't gotten back yet. So we're working through those, but we do take a very proactive approach of trying to identify those properties that are not registered in the program. So we are taking those steps. It might not feel like it at times, but we are doing those types of steps. So are you making contact with the owners that don't report tenant turnovers? We most certainly are. That's another task that Emily is assigned that she has to go out and do, where she is identifying which properties have not reported tenant turnovers. The inspectors, they'll be out in the field, they'll see things, and they'll know that there's a particular property had a turnover that we never inspected or that we know is due for an inspection. They'll report them back. Emily will make contact with the owners and say, hey, you're due for an inspection, or if you never had one, you got to be registered with us and you got to get an inspection with us. So we are tracking those down. We're working on some software system upgrades that hopefully, if everything gets passed by the mayor and council, we'll have a better way of tracking these, and then letters will be going out to inform people you had a turnover at your property, we didn't do an inspection, please call us for an inspection, that type of stuff. So we are working on that. Hopefully because it'll be an implementation time period around the fall to winter of this year. hopefully we'll have a software system in place that can be better for us to track these unreported tenant turnovers. So what's the process for complaints reported to the city? So one of the common questions that we get asked or concerns is that, you know, the tenant called you and they didn't tell me about anything. I'm sure that's never happened to you all, right? No, that's never happened. But I know that those things happen. And we know that in our office. When someone calls our office, one of the first words out of the staff's mouth is, you know, have you made your landlord aware? And of course, we all know they can lie. I mean, we have no validation point of saying, when they say, yep, okay, well, we have nothing else other than saying, okay, well, they said they did. But we always ask, have you made your landlord aware of the situation? So we know that they'll lie and say something else, but that happens. Then we'll go out and do the inspection of the place and then, of course, send you all the results of what the inspection is. I know we get a lot of times, well, can't you make me aware of when you're going to go do an inspection for that complaint? Which there's pluses and minuses, those types of things. We always got to work on, you know, our safety for something. We don't want to get in the middle of a dispute between it because we know generally when the tenants are calling our office, they're calling for a couple reasons. One is they're behind on the rent or they're getting evicted, right? I mean, that's why they want to call us because they're going to try to do some sort of retaliatory thing that they're calling us because they want to get the landlord in trouble or they want to make it better for the next person to move in. We hear that a lot of times too, that we want it better for the next person's moving into the place. So we know those types of situations. We hear all that type of stuff, but we want to make it so it's safe for us to do the inspection. We can address this stuff. If you're calling us and like you get that notice and you're going, hey, that tenant's being evicted next week, just call us and say that and say, hey, I'll just call you once they get out. We can come in and do the inspection. I'll make all the repairs, do the inspection. That's fine. If your timeline, something like that, if you're saying, hey, that tenant's going to be evicted at the end of the month or something, if it's not an immediate safety type thing, like of course, if it's a smoke detector thing, we want that resolved quickly. But if it's something where they can be delayed some for some sort of issue, we'll certainly work with you on that saying, hey, the tenant's being evicted at the end of the month. You know, give us a call. We can work through those types of stuff. So don't always feel like, okay, I got that complaint inspection stuff. I want to make you aware. We do ask them every time if you made your landlord aware, and we do know that they're not always truthful to us as well on those, which is a surprise, right? I know everyone's surprised by that. Also, I just received a notice and the names have to be corrected in a couple days. We get calls about that all the time. You know, I mean, granted, it was nice when we processed mail in Maryland, or in Maryland, yeah, we still process mail in Maryland, but when we processed mail in Hagerstown, it kind of flipped around quick. But now, you know, everything gets shipped to Baltimore, then comes back to Hagerstown, then everything goes out for distribution. We know that it does take time, and certain of our ordinances, like for the nuisance abatement ordinance, we do have ordinance restricted time frames for stuff. If you do get that, and let's say you get, you know, we mail a letter on a Monday or Tuesday, and you get it on that Wednesday, and the deadline, I'm sorry, we mail the letter out, but you get the letter on a Tuesday, and the deadline's Wednesday, and you're like, oh my goodness gracious, there's no way I can get this done in this time. Just give us a call. Call the inspector. Calling me, calling Emily, calling the front office, that doesn't do any good because the inspector's going to know what it is. When you all call me or something, I'm going to be like, I'll have to look it up and I'll talk to the inspector. I don't have an answer. So call the inspector. We have all of our business cards back here with each of the inspectors. Certainly take them. We have a map as well of the city of Hagerstown that has the identified areas of what zones each of the inspectors patrol and are assigned for rental inspections. On the back side of that map is all copies of their business cards with all their contact information. Certainly take one of those with you and stuff there. I see a couple of you all have them already in your hands, which is great. That's an easy way to get a hold of the inspector. So if you have something like that, certainly call us and ask for that extension or something. It's easier to do that way than it is to try to call the front office. Now, what's a reasonable amount of time for asking for an extension? So if it's high weeds, and let's say that it is 2 foot tall. Now, I'm not saying you all ever had 2 foot tall weeds, but let's say you had 2 foot tall weeds at your property, and you're saying, all right, you call us up and say, you know, hey, I can't get to it by Thursday, but I can get to it over the weekend. Can you give me time till Monday? Not a problem. Any of the inspectors back here would certainly give you something along that time frame. Now, if you call us up and say, I can't get to this till the end of the month, that's not a reasonable amount of time because the reason why we're finding out about these things is because a neighbor or someone called us. It's not all the time that we find it by driving up and down the street. So certainly, you know, we got to be respectful of everyone else in the time frame. So if you do have something, always give us a call. We'll want to work with you on the time frames. We have to establish a deadline because we need to make sure that there's a standard that needs to be achieved. These are reasonably set time frames that were established back in 2003. We've used the same ones for the codes during that time period, so certainly just go ahead and ask for more time if need be. And then the one thing is, like I said, that this thing is being recorded. So if you have a general question here, and I'm saying this, we're going to open up for general questions now. If you have one, raise your hand because then Wes or Eric, which we're so thankful for them to videotape this today for later to view for those that can't be here, they'll hand you the microphone so you can ask that so it can be recorded on the system. I'll repeat it because the one oversight that we had for this was we didn't put up a speaker system for this so that everyone can hear us. I know I'm a loud talker. I've always been. I can talk across gyms and stuff here. But so, raise your hand. Wes will bring you the microphone and we'll ask it. The one thing I want to make sure of too before I forget is that if you didn't sign up for the giveaway type of stuff there, make sure you do so now. I don't know whoever has stuff, either Vicki or Wendy can help you with that to make sure, because we're going to do that after we get done this question and answer time period. So just make sure you have those, but we'll answer your questions that you might have now. I know those gentlemen have one, so Wes is coming here with the microphone.
Thank you, Wes. You have 9,000 defined properties, but 2,400 of them have never been inspected. Why not move the focus to those 2,400 and the people who are abiding by the law can relax a little bit?
Well, the ones that you kind of are relaxing a little bit, there is no change to what's currently going on for the ones that are abiding by the law. No change to you whatsoever. If you are not abiding by laws, when you got put up to the top of the list and have a priority. So kind of, but not. I know what you're looking for. You love to have it where you had a few years where you didn't have any inspections type of a thing, but it's so that we don't continue down a path of keep on having stuff. So it's trying to get those that aren't abiding to get them up to the level that people are.
How can we find out the exact date that the inspection is recorded? I know that the year that my inspections were, but I don't know if I have it to the day, so I know when the 4-year period is up.
Okay. All right. So when is the 4-year time period up type of stuff there? We have those in our office. They are available online if you want to work through that system. But we do have them in our office. You can always email us and let us know. Emily gets a lot of requests for those, and we will research those. To preface that with it, Emily gets a lot of requests for those. So sometimes we'll have a new management company come in and they'll, hey, I got 200 units now in your town. Can you tell me when all the inspections were? That's a little tedious for Emily to get through. She works on them, but it's a little bit tedious. But certainly just email us, let us know. We can give you the exact dates for that type of stuff and look things up. They are online because everything's in that system that's online, but we will work through those. Any types of questions? There's one back there, or Arlene's got one.
Just a quick one. I know whenever they implemented the new carbon monoxide smoke detector laws, I'm not sure if it's very clear. Like if you have a property that has no other source of heat, like fuel heat, and it's all electric, I was still having to put carbon monoxide in.
Yeah, so the carbon monoxide state law that they passed, so this is a state law. This is not a local jurisdiction, but it's one of those nice things that the state likes to do to pass on to everyone else to enforce, right? So with the carbon monoxide alarms, the way the state law is written, that no matter what it's called, if it's called a rental property, it's got to have a CO alarm detector in it. And there's no care if it's all electric property or if it's fuel fire type of stuff. The one thing that the state is working on right now that they have proposed, and it looks like it will probably pass, is eliminating that requirement, that only if you have a fuel-fired gas or fuel-fired equipment that emits CO, that's when you're required to have a carbon monoxide alarm.
That I don't need.
Can't answer that one. All right, I know that you had a question.
Just real quick, the egress window, is there any specific type? Does it have to be encasement or can it be demo? Like, what is the requirement for a third story, like an attic bedroom?
So, like for an attic bedroom, that you have in the place, you need a casement window or it's going to be double hung. Of course, we all know how the firefighters go up there the first time, right? They put the axe right through the top sash and rip out the bottom sash, and there you go. Now you got the opening done. But by code, what is required is that you have to have a casement window for any bedroom that's located the third story or below. Now, granted, if it was existing at the time of construction, that the double hung window, whatever was at that time for an egress, is acceptable. But that's, again, if it was at the time of construction. Not many of our buildings in town had the third floor bedrooms in them at the time they were built. These were added on later on, and then that kicks in that emergency escape requirement. So it just kind of varies on a case-by-case basis. But Vicki in the back with the safety table can answer more specific questions to those.
This is just a quick follow-up on about the smoke detectors and carbon monoxide. Does the city or the state of Maryland have any type of location they're posting when there are recall issues tied to those? Because when I put my property in just 2 years ago, I bought brand new for my new home and for my rental. And of all things, the version I bought, 3 of them failed at my house, not my rental, thank goodness. Couldn't return them, but I also found out that there's been multiple complaints with the First Alert system that I purchased.
Yeah, so recall on the smoke detectors that you have. Those come out fairly often. We don't monitor them too much. Our electrical inspector does get emails for those recalls. That's a great idea of posting it on the website. We certainly can. We can use it as social media stuff that Donnie's writing down already. I can know that he's doing that now. So that we're going to make sure we'll get that information out there if it is a recall. That's a great idea.
I have a question. I keep my properties nice, but the person next door, what Yin's going to do with the inspection on them? Are you going to inspect their house? Because the last time I had an inspection, inspector said I can't do nothing because they own that property.
Okay. So if it's an owner-occupied property, it's beside yours, they fall underneath the same rules and regulations that all rental properties fall under, except, we're not inspecting the interiors of owner-occupied properties. But the exteriors, they came to the same standard, and we will investigate any exterior violation, and they do get the same notices as anyone else. We call them community enhancement inspections, and they're part of the program. Vicki, when she first started with the city a few years ago, that was when she started doing that, was community enhancement inspections that she would do to tell property owners, if you owned property, to get that standard. We used to do a more proactive approach to that, not as much anymore because we've been overwhelmed with rentals, but we do hold them to the standard. Just report that. You can use that report of concern feature online. Let us know. Got any questions? It's okay if we don't have any more questions. I know you might have individualized questions that we have for the inspectors in the back that we're more than happy to answer those questions. Just kind of want to let know a couple things there. So we'll do the giveaway. Vicki's in charge of that stuff there. So want to thank a couple people that are here. We had the Washington County Landlord Association. They're here as well, Property Owners and Landlord Association. A number of them have. We've had several meetings with them. We want to make sure that we're meeting some of the needs that people have, so we'd like to thank them for being here and helping us through this process to cover topics. Also, the housing authorities here as well with Sean and Chris and Don, so we'd like to thank them for being here with us. Vicki's doing stuff. Oh, that's right, she went to go get this stuff there. So for the questions afterwards, so for the individualized questions, we have 4 tables that are set up in the back here. So for the safety inspections that we have some of the staff sitting at, there'll be Vicki, Justin, and Mike Sable will be back there, that they'll be able to answer those questions for you have. And they'll have the smoke detector flyer as well, like different things of what's required for what location and where smoke detectors are not allowed. And then also the safety inspection standards that was adopted by Mayor and Council, list all those out. They also have a code book as well that this is limited to the safety inspections. You're like, is this going to be a violation of a safety inspection? They can answer that question. Also, they have that map of all of the zone area as well for who our contacts are. Then we have the online table with it also does full interior inspections. Those will be Donnie, Jason, and Mike Fry. And then those will have the online manuals, which I know some of you all picked them up when you were coming in and stuff there. So there'll be how you can pay online, how you can look up your inspections, how you can look up the permits. Also have the social media cards. So I know I went through the slide, but we want everyone to join that's here. So grab one of those so you can follow us when you can get to a location to get on those sites and follow us. Also, we gave those question cards out as well. So if you're like, I have a question, but I didn't get a chance to ask it and I don't have time to hang around anymore, write the question down on the card, put it in that box there at the online table. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. Approximately a week is what we're kind of saying for us to do that because it is Thursday and then we'll hit the weekend on Saturday there, so we're going to give us a week to get back to that. We'll have the licensing table back there that will have basically, it's a copy of the ordinance that goes into effect on July 1. Also a one-pager that essentially goes over all the changes that we mentioned here today. Also a brochure that goes over the rental licensing program, and then any blank applications that if anyone came here with wanting to register a property or something, we have those back there, and Emily and Sean will be there as well. And then I'll be back at the Never Inspected table. Like I said, I have that preliminary list, so if you're kind of curious about one, I can answer that. If it's just one, I can answer that type of question. If you're saying, I got 50 properties, I'm wondering if they're on the list. I don't have the time for that today, but certainly I can take your information, I'll write it down, and I'll get back to you because we want to answer everyone's questions. Our main goal for all of these information sessions that we're doing is that we want to be able to answer your questions. So I want to make sure we have that. So Vicki, I think she's got the stuff back there, and I guess if anyone wants to help her bring anything up here. And then since we were going to have Alan Johnson, but unfortunately he couldn't be here today from the Landlord Association, so we all know Don Harcum from Section 8. So Don's going to draw everything for us here for who the winners are. So he'll come on up here. So thanks, Don. He volunteered earlier forcibly to do this.
Now, can this be like with Oprah, everybody wins?
No, unfortunately, no, not today. Marilyn, all right, calling up here. I guess, or Wendy can bring one to you. Yeah, I'll hold it and stuff there.
Okay. Shirley Birch?
Shirley, all right.
John Barnes?
All right. Great, so we wanted to do that. I mean, I guess you can come back in May and try your chances again at any things that were given away for the stuff. But wanted to just say one last thing rather than our stuff here. That I want to thank everyone. You all took time out of your day to come and listen to what these changes are. So we really appreciate the time that you came out to try to listen more about these changes. Again, they all go to effect in July 1. The one thing that we want to make sure that you did, so these cards you signed in on, you put down your email addresses and stuff for us. After this is all over, probably on maybe Friday, if not on Monday, we're going to ask you for like a satisfaction survey because we want to hear how this information session went, what things could we improve on, and then also we want to know about what other sessions would you like us to see to put on. One of the things is that I mean, it's always nice to put on big sessions like this type of stuff, but everyone's got to take time out of their day. Luckily, we had the niceness of our communication staff here, of Wes and Eric, videotaping it for us. We've talked to them. If there's other information sessions or other information type things that you would like to do, we talked about doing that in our studio at City Hall to maybe videotape things that we could put out on YouTube to answer questions as well. Just trying to make things more so you could kind of ask questions. So if you got ideas on what you'd like to see, certainly let us know. We would love to hear about those things. But again, thank you all for attending. We have tables set up in the back for other questions, and we're always here to help. Thank you very much.
And so when you get to use not diseases, that's kind of when your starts for your insurance inspection. Like, we don't have to call for your
And they said, well, we'll go by and check it. You can't do that.
Your rental license will renew. It's different with the inspection. Rental is every year, and it's that same date. Everybody's on like the same. Okay. Yeah.